YouTube. Welcome to AOBE's BISD Candidate Forum. My name is Veronica Borrego and I am the proud president of the Association of Brownsville Educators, AOBE, the only chartered, democratic, member-driven organization in BISD. Today will be day one of the AOBE BISD Candidate Forum. Day two will be Wednesday at 6 p.m., again here at the Royal Event Center for those who want to attend live, and also will be streamed live on our YouTube channel and Facebook, just like we're doing tonight. After day two of our forum, our members will have the opportunity to vote in person at our AOBE office or electronically. Membership will be verified at the time of voting. As the president of AOBE, I serve the membership and therefore will support the majority vote for the endorsement. We are very proud to say AOBE's endorsement will be member-based and not to the decision of one person or a few committee members. We honor the democratic system and our members' voice. With that said, we have surveyed our members and compiled a list of questions for our candidates. The questions are in 5 categories: safety, salary, compensation, and benefits, workload, discipline, and other. Tonight's categories are safety and salary, compensation, and benefits. Every candidate will have, Ida, 1 minute. Every candidate will have 2 minutes for introductions and 1 minute to answer questions and 2 minutes for closing statements. We will be going in order by position and alpha for the questions and alternating the order throughout the questions. Let's get started with the introductions. We will begin with Ms. Drew Brown.
Good evening, AOBE members. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Briefly, my name is Drew Brown. I've been in Brownsville for a very long time. I worked for the school district for 42 years as a teacher at Fall, Hanna, Oliveda. I also worked in various programs, and for the last 26 years of my career, I served as the public information officer for the school district. I like to say maybe I wasn't born and raised in Brownsville, but I certainly got here as fast as I could, and I've been here ever since, and I love this community. I dedicated my whole career to the Brownsville Independent School District because it means so much to me. I think it's a terrific district. We've done wonderful things here because of you. The things that you do as teachers, as employees, the things you do for our students has made Brownsville ISD one of the top districts in the state. And it was my pleasure as public information officer to talk about those exciting events and the awards and achievements that our students achieved because of your work, the work that you did. I decided to run for the board 4 years ago because I have great enthusiasm and interest in this school district, and I decided to run for another 4 years for the same reason. There's a lot of work still to be done. I hope that we can continue to work together as a team to improve Brownsville ISD and make it a premier district in the state of Texas.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Our next introduction will be Mr. Philip Cowan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of TSTA, AOBE, and NEA. I'm very proud that you let me come and talk to you. I really appreciate it. One of the things I am in what I do for a living is I'm a customs broker, but I do something else. I'm a lawyer. And one of the things a lawyer does is when it talks to a jury, they kind of lay out the elements of an offense or the elements of a particular jury charge or whatever. So what would be a good jury charge, to say, what do we want to have a good school system? And one of the things I want to be able to do is to make sure that my first goal is to have our schools safe. It's terrible that we have people who want to come in and harm our children. But, we need to make our schools safe. And I'm going to do everything I can. I've done it in the past. We hired 20 plus officers a few years ago. Want to see wages improved. I want to figure out some way to get rid of the salary compression and demoralization that's taking place because of salary compression that's taking place. I also want to improve work atmosphere at schools. I hear a lot of teachers complaining about not being able to take their planning period because they get preempted to do other things. So I want to see if we can stop that. I want to make sure that our facilities are nice and in good order. I was involved in building 13 schools in the school system. We just did Hannah, Rivera, Lopez, and a whole bunch of other schools, and facelifts, uplifting, improving stuff. I've been on the school board 1986 to 89, 92 to 95, and 2016 to 2020. I've served you. I believe I've served you well. And if you give me the opportunity and vote for me, I will serve you well again. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Our next candidate with introduction is Mr. Carlos Elizondo.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Carlos Alberto Elizondo, 50-year-old. And my reasons for running, there's plenty, but just probably the most important ones, of course, is safety. I have been a full-time public servant throughout my career. I did go to Pettis Elementary when I first started. Then I went to Oliveira, and then I went to the Homer Hanna High School for all 4 years. I do have a vested interest. I do have a freshman at Hanna. She's 14 years old. And I do have my wife, who is a counselor at Oliveira High School. And so you ask me, why am I running? I'm running because there is a need, there is a voice, and there's a lack. We have individuals who are saying that there's work to be done, but the work needs to be spread across throughout the district and not on backs on just a few. So with that saying, I've always been a pioneer. I've been a union president for the fire department throughout my career, been several of union work. And I know how hard it is to be able to fight on the other side of the line, especially when people don't want to hear you. So this is your time, the time that's going to make you be able to get someone that's going to be your voice at that level. The school district needs a voice, especially from the employees. My name is Carlos Elizondo. I'm running for place 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next introduction is candidate Mr. Victor Caballero.
Thank you, Ms. Borrego. My name is Victor Caballero. I am a product of BISD. I attended Cromack Elementary, Falk Middle School, and Porter High School. I've worked for this district for 37 years. I've worked in the capacity of a teacher's aide all the way to a principalship in this community. I've also served 3 years in Mathis ISD as the assistant superintendent. My experience is not only at the campus level, but it's also at the central office level. I started my career at Castañeda Elementary as a teacher's aide, became a teacher there, moved on to Vermilion Elementary as a teacher as well, became the assistant principal at Porter High School, moved on to become the assistant principal at Burns Elementary, later on became the principal at Resaca Elementary, Perkins Middle School, Garden Park. I did 2 tours of Garden Park. I'm running for a lot of different reasons, but my major ones right now of concern are the district staff, the programs that we have, and the students that we serve. Right now, my major concern is the teachers. I've heard candidates up here say that they didn't know that the teachers were taking three hours to plan with the program forethought. I think there's got to be a moratorium and a study of what we're doing for teachers. 3 hours of planning is unacceptable. I'm sorry, but that's how I have to protect the integrity of the classroom for instructional purposes. You're also having to do, in some cases, you're inputting grades into 2 systems. Not acceptable. We only need 1. So with that in mind, keep in mind that better moves or new moves for a new direction is what I'm all about. Thank you for allowing me to introduce myself.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our next candidate introduction is Ms. Denise Garza.
Thank you, Ms. Borrego. My name is Denise Garza, and I am your BISD Place 2 candidate. I'm a proud product of BISD, having attended Morningside Elementary, Perkins Middle School, and Rivera High School. And I have served our community over the past few years, sitting on various boards. I also have 20 years experience working in the public education. I like to say I am the voice for our classified employees. Many times our classified employees were never seen. Raises would be given to our other staff members, and classified stayed where they were at. It was 20 years, and we finally were able to move our pay to $15 an hour. That is just the beginning. We continue to now look at the compensation of the compression in our hourly employees, and that is where I come in, because I understand we have employees who have served our district for 10+ years, and they have continued giving their service to our district, and now we want to properly pay them for what they deserve. And with me on the board, we have had stability, we have brought the integrity back to our district, and we are here to listen to our community, because that is why our district has moved forward these past 2 years that I was elected for an unexpired term. So I look forward to I look forward to answering your questions, and thank you very much for having us here today.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Our next candidate introduction is Mr. Frank Ortiz.
Good afternoon, and thank you, committee members, for allowing me to be here this afternoon, for the invitation and the opportunity for me to be able to share my platform and my qualifications. I do want to assure you that I will serve our district with the utmost integrity, coupled with my experience as a teacher and becoming an administrator. I still am part of the educational system, as I am supervising student teachers at UT-RGV Brownsville. These student teachers will soon be our future leaders in the classrooms. My name is Frank Ortiz, and I am your candidate for the Brownsville Independent School District School Board of Trustees. I am a public school product. I began my teachings and my experience as far as being in the classroom here in Brownsville, as a teacher. My years of becoming a student, I started, of course, in Bastrop, went to Round Rock, and then to Brownsville. All my undergraduate and graduate studies are here in Brownsville as well. I offer you 41 years of educational experience. Last 20 years, I have been an administrator. 5 years before that, I was an assistant principal. And of course, also before that, a reading specialist with multiple years as teaching at the elementary and secondary level. I am committed to the safety of all students. I am committed to ensure that we close the gap in our achievement. I am committed that we continue to work with our infrastructure in BISD to support technology. And I am committed for competitive wages so that we can retain our dedicated teachers that are in the classroom day in and day out, educating our future leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. And our final candidate introduction is Ms. Dr. Prissy Roca-Tipton.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Prissy Roca-Tipton, and I'm running for place 4, and I am a BISD product. I attended El Jardín Elementary, then we moved on to Martin Elementary, then Russell Elementary, and then I attended Stell Middle School, and then I was a proud 4-year letterman from Hannah High School in basketball. And this year marks my 20th year in higher education. I have been instrumental in co-developing and administering over 200 federal, state, and local grants. And I have also taught for over 7 years in higher ed, microeconomics, organizational communication, introduction to business in English and Spanish, and for over 7 years. My goals for the next 4 years is I definitely want to support a TASB compression study to review and adjust employee pay inequities. We understand that coming out of a global pandemic, we had to increase the pay to retain our employees and also because of the inflation. But now the next step is a compression study. I'm acting on it. In fact, in the next board meeting, we are going to already have an item with the support of my colleagues that we can begin that compression study. My second goal is to support the creation of a paperwork review subcommittee and or a policy made up of teachers across all levels so we can identify excessive, redundant, obsolete, and unnecessary paperwork. And goal number 3 of many, of course, but some of my top 3 are, and support a policy holding those accountable for the lack of respect. Thank you all.
Okay, that was our final introduction. So we are now going to begin with our questions. Members are concerned about pay inequities, being overworked, having bad benefits, and worrying about their safety while trying to educate our children. Many questions were submitted by our membership. Due to time constraints, questions were selected by the AOBE election committee members, some of which are here. Thank you, ladies. The order of questions does not constitute priority. Our first topic is topic number 1, safety. The safety and security of all within the campuses, departments, and all district facilities is a concern to all educators. Question number 1, and we will be beginning with Ms. Drew Brown. What are your views on arming teachers?
Safety is a priority for all of us here. And in light of some of the things that have happened in the last 10 years, briefly before I address the arming teachers, I want to talk about some of the things I'd like to see. I do support putting police officers, armed police officers in every one of our campuses. I support increasing the number of counselors so that we can identify situations with mental issues. I support the Sandy Hook Promise program, which I think will aid in that area. I support lobbying our federal and state entities for more money. I support making each of our campuses in every building in the district impenetrable, doing whatever we have to do, acquiring the latest technology. Oh, okay. But when it comes to arming our teachers, I know that some districts are looking at having various marshals within the campus, and I'd be willing to look at that.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Mr. Philip Cowan.
Do you want the question repeated? Repeat the question, please. Want me to repeat the question?
No. The question, what are my views on arming teachers? Okay. And I have 2 answers. One of them, as a last resort, it's okay with me. But there's a lot of things I think we knew before we get there. We need to make sure we have the right and adequate amount of police within the school system first. If we can't do that, and if it's still a problem, I think the district needs to start training teachers and, make them really useful or teach them how to use a gun. It's not something that you just pick up by buying a gun. You have to learn how to safety, whatever else it is. Because in being in the classroom, a lot of kids, you have to have some gun safety. So I'm not totally opposed to it or anything like that, but I think it's a last resort. But teachers, if it gets to the point where you have to defend yourself and your children, or what happened in Uvalde, I will go out and buy a few guns and hand them out to you. Because I'm not afraid of that anymore. Thank you. Well, by the way, those who were speaking here, a little advice: you don't realize when you hit this here, it makes noise against the table. That's why you hear so much.
Our next candidate is Mr. Carlos Elizondo. What are your views on arming teachers?
Well, if we have to be answering that question, we're in pretty bad shape. And unfortunately for us, the last 4 years have proven to us that our schools are not safe. And because of the decisions of the current board, we are where we're at, and we have to answer those questions. It's a very difficult question to ask. Arming a teacher. Teachers are not here to be armed. They're here to educate. And a lot of teachers have a stressor because now that's an option. But there also is a huge stressor because what if that school that they're at is going to be the next school where there's going to be a school shooting? So do we have to arm teachers? We probably do. Only because we have failed to put in police officers at every school. Not only that, this current board is looking or thinking about doing away with security officers. That's another element of being able to secure the schools. So as a last resort, only if trained, there's already a Texas School Marshal T-Cole certification course that's being offered for all educators who want to carry. I think only then and only if they're certified, then we can get that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next candidate is Mr. Victor Caballero. What are your views on arming teachers?
Thank you. My answer is going to be from a different point of view totally. First of all, I don't think teachers should be armed at all. We need to hire security personnel. I have two brothers in the law enforcement arena. They're both Border Patrol agents. They carry a weapon. You gotta have a good psychological view as to what you do when you take out that gun. I don't know. I don't want to put our teachers in that situation. They're educators. I'm sorry, this is my point of view, but I gotta tell you, as an ex-principal, having the border wall to one of the schools in the district that always had people jumping over it, drugs being carried onto the school ground when I had little 5-year-olds come, 5-year-olds that were exposed to vehicles coming to their site door or to our site gate and loading drugs, and Border Patrol with high-powered weapons. So absolutely, I would not accept that. I am in the camp of no guns in school from the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our next candidate is Ms. Denise Garza. What are your views on arming teachers?
Hi, yes. I grew up around guns all my life, coming from a family who hunted. I'm a wife to a law enforcement officer as well. And I will say, teachers did not go to school to carry a gun on campus. They went to school so they could educate. It is up to us as a board to be able to support our law enforcement, our BISD police, to give them the proper training and the resources to protect our students and our staff. Our teachers do not need to have that other stress of carrying a gun on them on campus. And like Mr. Caballero stated, yes, you need to have you need to be psychologically well in order at that moment if you ever need to draw a gun. And let me tell you, our teachers need to protect and educate our students, but not with weapons. And I like to clarify, we never once said we were gonna go away with police officers. We want to train our security guards. We want to train our security guards, and we want to promote them unless they want to go back to school to become police officers. We want to be able to grow our own as well, so that they can come back and work for our district.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Our next candidate is Mr. Frank Ortiz. What are your views on arming teachers?
Well, thank you for that question. I truly and strongly believe, as it's been mentioned already, teachers are in the classroom to teach our future. They're not to be there carrying a weapon. Let me tell you, it takes a lot of fortitude to pull out a weapon and pull that trigger. It really does. And under circumstances, who knows what it may be like during that moment. Our teachers, I am totally against it. They're in the classroom to teach our future. And it is up to the district and up to us as board members to protect our teachers, to provide the appropriate, security. We need to have armed officers at our campuses. They are at the middle school, they are at the high school, and I'm glad to hear that they begin in this year to put some armed officers at the elementary level. We need to continue to do that. Our teachers teach. They're not there to carry guns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. And our final candidate for question number 1 is Dr. Tipton. What are your views on arming teachers?
Yes, I'm Prissy Rocachepten and I am running for BISD Place 4. And I believe that our teachers are there to educate our children. However, I know that the first order of the day and the last order of the day is always the safety of our students, our staff, and our families. I support the expansion of a workforce, police workforce within each campus to ensure that they're highly trained. I also support supporting their education, those that want to move up from security officers to peace officers. Definitely support in investing in their education. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to question number 2. And the first candidate that will be answering this question is Mr. Cowan. Are you willing to provide competitive pay to recruit and retain armed officers at BISD? If so, what is your timeline?
I almost want to say we need to go to the sheriff's office and take those deputies that are underpaid and bring them over to the school district, because we could probably get them and make some money. But this is one area where I don't think you need to hold back. Just plain and simple. You need to hire the right staff, and we've done it in the past. We don't pay our officers that well. We need to get them trained, pay them well, and I'm willing to do that. We need to go out and recruit officers who understand school safety. This is not the same thing. And we need to recruit officers who are willing to put their lives on the line. We saw that, that didn't happen in Uvalde, and I'm very disappointed by that. I was a little shocked by what happened. But if you're going to have somebody say, put your life on the line to protect them, we need to pay the people what it takes to be able to come in and do the job and protect our teachers, our children, so that in the future, they don't need to have to bring a gun to protect themselves. But anyway, that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Our next candidate is Mr. Elizondo. Are you willing to provide competitive pay to recruit and retain armed officers at BISD? If so, what is your timeline?
Thank you. Unfortunately, we're being asked that question during a election cycle. I think this should have been done 4 years ago, especially even after the Uvalde incident. We shouldn't be asking our questions now, especially when we're in an election cycle, saying, should we pay police officers more so they can stay? You're having individuals, not just police officers, but teachers leaving the district because the pay is horrible. And the respect is at the all-time low. So do I feel that we need to pay them more? Absolutely. If we don't, more of them will leave. And who are you going to train? Because there's no police officer from the sheriff's department that is breaking down the door at BISD to come in here and start working, because they know the pay is horrible. Benefits might be a little bit better, and they don't have to do shift work. That's why they'll be here, not for the pay. So do we need to compensate them? Yes, absolutely. Not only do we need to compensate them, but we also need to give them more training. And also you have to incorporate the mental health of these individuals, because they take on a huge load to be able to protect everybody. Everybody, I mean, even the strangers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next candidate, Mr. Victor Caballero. Are you willing to provide competitive pay to recruit and retain armed officers at BISD? If so, what is your timeline?
The answer is yes. I am willing to make sure that our wages are competitive. And one of the reasons why we don't have competitive pay raises is because we're so tied down in debt. You heard the presentation at last meeting, board's meeting, that we have $15 million in debt from the bonds. We need to get rid of those bonds ahead of schedule. This is unacceptable. It's poor practices. And if you don't see, our board made a decision to raise our tax increase or rate, the tax rate, put it up higher. Well, I have to tell you something. They found over 20 million to do on construction projects this next board meeting. I think that's shameful. That's money out of the ESER account. Where is the ESER committee? There's a lot of things that we got to work on. Time has got to be different. Things have got to be different. We're not working for our employees. We're working to keep ourselves in debt and pilfer our budgets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our next candidate is Ms. Denise Garza. Are you willing to provide competitive pay to recruit and retain armed officers at BISD? And if so, what is your timeline?
So 2 years ago, when I was elected, TASB came in and did a study for all employees, and we were able to raise even our law enforcement officers up. And right now, BISD police, they do make more than a county deputy. So with that said, we do have experienced personnel coming from the sheriff's office to come apply for BISD. We've had some from other agencies, retired police officers as well. In those 2 years, we have proven that we have increased our employees on their salary. A lot of the time, previous boards kept our salaries stagnant. And in these 2 years that I was here, we have managed to bring up everybody closer to market value. And if we need to go back and look at law enforcement, whether it's giving them a stipend or basing them on how their peace officer certifications are, whether it's a peace officer or a master peace officer, we need to evaluate that. I am for that. I support law enforcement and giving them a pay increase.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Our next candidate, Mr. Frank Ortiz. Are you willing to provide competitive pay to recruit and retain armed officers at BISD? If so, what is your timeline?
Absolutely. Once again, I don't know why this question is coming up now. This has been happening for years, all right? Police officers with BISD leave us. They come to us, we train them, we invest in them, but we're not paying them. So all of a sudden now it's a big issue. Why hasn't this happened a long time ago? Our police officers from BISD, they leave to the Border Patrol, FBI, they leave to Homeland Security, but they leave already trained because BISD has done that when they come in. So what is my timeline? We need to continue doing this and giving them, appropriate pay so that we can keep them. Remember, these officers put their lives on the line and we need to keep them and we need to continue to pay them appropriately so that we can retain them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Our next candidate is Dr. Tipton. Are you willing to provide competitive pay to recruit and retain armed officers at BISD? If so, what is your timeline?
Yes, and actually, I like to talk about moving forward, not about the past, but if we want to talk about the past, I just want to let everybody know that coming in 4 years ago, we inherited this bond debt. And we inherited a negative 14 million self-insurance fund. And we also inherited tracks that were only selected for the few. So it was very hard to answer to our families in our community, to our students, and say, why do we're only out of our 10 middle schools, only a selected few selected to build tracks? Why are we having to celebrate ribbon cuttings for elementary gyms to have air conditioning? Air conditioning was here 50 years ago. That's what we had to invest in. We had to invest in our students. But going back to competitive pay, of course, definitely. And we started 4 years ago. Our teacher salary was $43,000 when we started. Right now, 4 years later, we're at $53,000. And also our employee hourly wages, they started off at $8.93. Right now, we're at minimum $15. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. And our final candidate is Ms. Drew Brown.
Okay, I think I've got the question. Absolutely, I support paying competitive pay. And it's really important at this forum that we talk about accuracy and facts, because I think we're already distorting some things. We're lucky in Brownsville because Brownsville long ago, BISD made a commitment to a police department. There are a lot of districts right now that are scrambling, trying to forge contracts with other law enforcement agencies to cover their schools. We're fortunate that we already had a police department intact and that we are adding to it. And I have not heard any discussions about eliminating any security guards. We are asking if security officers would like us to work with them so that they can become police officers. We've already installed police officers in several of our elementary schools, and I certainly support paying competitive wages. We must be doing something right because we've been hiring quite a few, and I think we will continue to. We all understand how important it is, and we all want armed police officers in all our schools.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Moving on to question number 3. And our next candidate that will begin this is Mr. Elizondo. What are your thoughts on creating a Grow Your Own Armed Officer program?
Again, that question is pretty hard to answer. I think it needs to be member driven. I think if that's something that the membership wants, then they need to come to the table and ask for it. Because what's happening is that if you're having to drive the membership to be able to carry a weapon, that means that your police force is weak. And we need to make sure that we pay attention to increasing our police force and not increasing our educators to be carrying weapons. What that does, it doesn't increase the pay for a police officer. It just minimizes the force, adding teachers to that mix. And you're talking about stipends. Stipends are not added to your retirement. So you got to make sure you look at what you're asking. Do we want to make more teachers carry guns and hire less police officers, or do we want to increase the police department staff to supplement where they're at? So if we need that, if police officers are coming to the district because of pay, then most definitely we must have someone to fill in those gaps. And the only way to doing it is bringing in a school marshal program where they're certified, and that's the T-close.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next candidate is Mr. Victor Caballero. Do you need me to repeat the question?
I would like to see the district take the approach of growing our law enforcement personnel. I'm not in favor, as I said earlier, about growing our force through teachers. I feel like I mentioned earlier that pay is critical, retention is critical. And right now, as if you've not noticed, last year, our district lost 550 employees. Here we are in the month of October. We've already lost for August and September 22 people through resignations and retirements. Got another 4 here this next month. When do we stop the bleeding, guys? Where are we supposed to be looking? You better start looking at administration. They're not taking care of our district staff. I'm sorry I don't put them on a pedestal, but that's the true fact of where we lie. And if we don't do something about it very soon, this is going down the tubes. I gotta be truthful with you. I've worked for this system for 40 years.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our next candidate is Ms. Denise Garza. Would you like me to repeat the question? What are your thoughts on creating a Grow Your Own Armed Officer program?
Yes, I am for this. Any security guard who is interested in becoming a police officer, I am for sending them to school to get the proper training to be a peace officer. Just how BISD has done it in the past with paraprofessionals when they sent them back to school to become educators. We understand people are leaving the workforce, and it's not a BISD thing, it is a nationwide thing. Right now, Good Morning America a month ago stated that teachers were leaving their profession in mass amounts. And in 2024, if the United States continued losing the amount of teachers that they're losing right now, we were going to be in an education crisis. So this is not about a BISD, them leaving us. This is whatever happened during COVID, people started seeing that there was more to life. But I am all about growing our own employees to make them get that extra experience that they need, sending them to school like we have in the past.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Our next candidate, Mr. Frank Ortiz. Do you need me to repeat the question?
As I said earlier, I'm not in favor of teachers carrying weapons, but I am in favor of recruiting, our current employees, security guards that are interested in being police officers, provide them with the training, provide them with appropriate pay, and, bring them up within our BISD system. I do agree on that. And as I said earlier, I do not agree that our teachers should be carrying weapons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Dr. Tipton, our next candidate. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, and I think I had mentioned earlier that I do believe that we do need to grow our own, and we need to invest in our current security officers who would like to move up and get their P certification license, and definitely support expanding that workforce and even finding other employees, not only our security officers, but maybe there's teachers, former retired officers, anyone who wants to be part of our workforce, definitely support in investing in their education or a certification that they may be lacking. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. Our next candidate, Ms. Drew Brown. Do you need me to repeat the question?
I take this question the same way. I think we have excellent security officers, and I think we should certainly work with any of them that would like to get their T-close certification, become police officers, and anybody else in the district that's interested in that. We could certainly work with them and pay them competitive wages and encourage them so that we can grow our own armed police officers and use them in our schools. But we're not talking about teachers, we're talking about security officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Our final candidate, Mr. Cowan. Do you need me to repeat the question?
I'm gonna be a little different because I don't support growing your own. I support hiring trained officers first, and I support paying those officers at the right wages. I don't want to water down what we have and get people in training to be the bulwark of protection in our school system. We need to hire the force that's trained now, and if people can want to get T-close certified, whatever else it is. They want to be a volunteer, do something, whatever else it is, but I want to have our officers paid fully, not water down their wages and supplement them, because I think we need a qualified force. I said a little while ago, I'm willing to let teachers have guns if we didn't do it. It's a last resort. I tell you what, if we have these marshals there that are in training, we may be in trouble, and the teachers would need the gun. So hopefully we don't get there, because I really wouldn't want to see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Our next question will begin with candidate Mr. Caballero. Currently, campuses have the option to implement an ID background scanning system. In your opinion, should this be a campus decision or district decision based?
I had the pleasure of starting the Raptor program at Garden Park Elementary as an ex-principal, and it came out of my funds. I would like for it to be supported by the district-wide. Absolutely, the answer is yes, simply because it comes out of district expenses, and it is a good system. It tracks down people who might be not allowed to come into your campuses. And I would be in total support of it. It's gotta be a district initiative, and by golly, it's gonna help the security of our campuses. And I'm all for it, because this is where I get an opportunity to see any intruder that might have a criminal record not be allowed into our campuses to hurt our kids and to hurt our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our next candidate, Ms. Garza. Would you like me to repeat the question?
I am in favor of it being a district decision. No fund should have to come out of a campus in order to have a Raptor set in place. Many times we have parents who are possibly sex offenders who come sometimes roaming our campuses. I want our students to be safe, and I want to have that implemented at all campuses. Because right now, life isn't what it used to be like 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. Right now, we're dealing with the security of our students, and I understand parents may be getting a little upset sometimes because they're like, well, you already know who I am. Well, we understand, but you need to have your ID if you want to be on this campus. So I am in favor of it being all throughout our district from elementary to high school and it coming out of district funds and not campus funds.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Our next candidate, Mr. Frank Ortiz.
Absolutely, I'm in total agreement with the Raptor system. It's been around for quite some time, okay? When I was a principal at Ben Bright Elementary, we installed that system there and it's very, very effective. I believe that every campus should have that system. It's an effective system. And I believe as well that it needs to come out of district funds, not the campus funds. The Raptor system, I mean, will run the person's, it'll run the background to see if they have anything on them. And we just need to keep our students safe. And I think that that program, that system is one that we need at our campuses. Once again, at district expense, not at the campus expense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Our next candidate, Dr. Tipton.
Yes, definitely. I support any type of ID system that will minimize any tragedy that that we can prevent in our schools. However, I also want to acknowledge that we have to be very sensitive to parents and our families who may not have the proper ID. So I think that I also support an awareness campaign for the families, so that way when they come onto the school site, that they know what they expect. And they're not just surprised when they actually come to the school and they have an emergency to come and pick up their child. So definitely I support a Raptor system. In addition, I support also an awareness campaign to ensure that all our students and families in our community know what we will expect from them when they come visit our schools.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. Our next candidate, Ms. Drew Brown. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Actually, I've had several conversations about this recently. Right now, the district's in the process of purchasing these things. And the good thing about if the district purchases it is the warranties, the support, the supplies, all that would be covered by the district. And the district's looking at the top of the line, top-notch programs right now, and some that are particularly cloud-based, because we have a lot of students that move from school to school. And I think we'll get a good product, and it will be supported by the district, and it won't be a burden to the campuses to buy supplies, keep it updated, keep it supported. It'll be something that, it's just something that the district supports and handles, and the schools are able to reap the benefits of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Our next candidate, Mr. Cowan. Currently, campuses have the option to implement an ID background scanning system. In your opinion, should this be a campus decision or district decision based?
I'm a little surprised we have this issue, because I'm just amazed that people can get on the campus without an ID, period. And I think if somebody doesn't have an ID, they don't get on the campus, period, at all. You know, something just, so I go home, you know, come back and go get your ID or something like that. But I don't think that it can be done at the campus level, but I worry very much about uniformity of application. That really was what was worrying me. That, one campus would be stronger than the other. And this happened when I was on the board 20 years ago. Uncle came up and picked up a niece, took her home and sexually assaulted her. Now let uncle pick him up, and he wasn't on the list to pick up the children. It was just laxity on the part of the staff in the school. And so district-wide, you will have uniformity of application. Doesn't take much. You have everything run through a district office to the back to the campus. Say yes, no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. And our final candidate, Mr. Elizondo.
No, thank you. I support the program. It's in favor of security for our children and our staff. But there's a caveat to it. We can incorporate as many programs as you like. But as you know, the current board has already taken away clerical position, a dean position, or they've chosen to take away an assistant principal's position. Who are you going to burden to be able to sit there and verify these IDs when you have thousands of kids? Rivera has 2,200 kids. Hannah has over 2,000. Who are we going to burden to sit there and verify if they are allowed to come into the school district or not? We can have as many programs as we want, and we can incorporate as many safety parameters, but we are taking away the people who are actually going to be able to check those. So who are we going to burden at the school level to be able to check all these, programs? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next question will begin with Ms. Garza. What is your position on mandating students to wear their school ID?
So I have an 18-year-old daughter, and right now getting her to carry her driver's license with her has been a struggle, because there's been times where I'm like, I need you to drive for me. And she's like, Mom, I don't have my license on me or my ID. I think this is something we need to start implementing with our students, even our younger children, because if there's ever a crisis at any one of our campuses, when it comes to identifying a student, we need to train them to already have their ID on them in case, we have to move our kids from a school to another setting due to a crisis. We're able to identify the child ASAP and not be running around saying, who is this child? Who does this child belong to? So with that said, I do support our children being trained to start carrying a school ID, even our elementary students. And that would be something I would support that the district would provide, not the campus, but come from district funds.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Our next candidate, Mr. Frank Ortiz. Do you need me to repeat the question?
I agree with that. We need to be able to identify our students, even our staff members. I would certainly agree that staff members, students, for the reasons that have been mentioned so far. I know that when I was principal at Aiken, before even going to Ben Bright, we did have an ID system, and we would have all of our students ID'd, and they would have it on their lapel or on their sleeves. Our teachers would wear them. Was it difficult to get them to wear it at times? Yes. Okay, but I think that under the circumstances, and the situations that we've been facing, not only us, but nationwide, I think that I would be in agreement with that, because we need to make sure that we're able to identify not only our staff, but also our students as well. Once again, I do think that it should be a district expense. When I had them at Ben Bright and at Aiken, it came out of the campus budget. But I do agree, district expense, and we need to be implementing that system moving forward for the safety of all.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Our next candidate, Dr. Tipton. Do you need me to repeat the question?
Thank you. Yes, definitely, we need to lead by example first. And all of us need to carry our IDs. And I think that we're in the business of educating our children. I do believe that they should be carrying their ID, but I don't believe in punishing our kids if they don't wear their IDs. I think it'll just be another obstacle for them. But I do believe in us advocating and leading by example for them to carry their IDs with them at all times, including our staff and our teachers and our administrators. And I also believe that all of this should come out of district funds, and there should be uniformity. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate, Ms. Drew Brown.
I think it's good training in today's world. There's nowhere that you go, businesses of any kind, anywhere in the pretty much anywhere in the world now that you don't see people wearing their IDs. So I don't think it's a bad idea to start encouraging our students to wear their IDs. We wear IDs when we go to the campuses, and pretty much anywhere you go, people have IDs now. And I think as a safety precaution, it's a good idea to encourage our students, even at a young age, to start wearing some sort of an identification.
Okay, our next candidate, Mr. Cowan.
I don't know if I'm gonna be the odd person out, usually the odd man out, but that doesn't count anymore. I don't want to force students to wear IDs. I mean, that seems like a wonderful idea and everything else. I can see kids, you know, pues, si no quiero ir a la escuela, deja mi ID en la casa. You know, there they are, they're gonna go home and not have to go to school. You know, they can be kicked out or whatever else it is. There is something you can do. Facial recognition. Not that expensive, it can be done. You know, have a kid, who are you? Walk up to this camera, they'll pick you up and be able to do it. If you want to spend some money, do it that way. You don't have to have everybody wearing a little ID or whatever. You can get it done. Because I can see a kid together and say, I don't want to go to school, so I'm going to leave my ID at home. They're going to kick me out. I'm going to get through first period, get on the ADA for the day, and I'm going home. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Mr. Elizondo? Alarm, my alarm. The question is, what is your position on mandating students to wear their school ID?
I mean, it's just another form of identifying the student, but maybe there is some other options out there. Not a lot of kids carry wallets. Not a lot of kids carry purses. And then the rules at the school district are probably you're not supposed to have them, right? No purses, none of this. So maybe we can look into other options of being able to get digital IDs. Every kid has a phone. So maybe it's not just to carry a physical ID, but maybe a digital ID. Facial recognition is very expensive, but there's other means of being able to do it. And everybody carries a phone nowadays. I think even 5-year-olds have phones now or iPads. So do I think it's a good thing? I think it is a good thing. It'll keep kids from bouncing to go visit their friends at other schools. It'll keep the kids, you know, identified within their own structure. Can it be a good thing? Yes, as long as, remember, identifying also comes with not HIPAA, but identification, you know, laws. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Mr. Caballero, do you want me to repeat the question?
This is an issue that, one, I have to ask, who's taking pictures? Who is it going to be assigned? Whose job is that going to be when we don't have enough personnel? It is tough because it was mentioned right now to have phones. Well, then they become an obstruction in the classrooms. I know what's going to happen with carrying phones. You know, you can create your own Facebook account. I see it. I'm going to take the position that at the high school, I can see high school and middle school, they're needed. They're older. Elementaries, I don't think it's going to be enforceable. The little ones are not the same as your middle and high school where they have more control of their needs. But at the elementary level, I don't think that's an appropriate setting. The teachers are responsible for them in case of identifying their students as they stay together. Please don't burden our elementary teachers with any more work than they already have, please.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our next question, we will begin with Mr. Ortiz. BISD has instituted a safety committee. However, AOBE was not invited to participate. How will you, as a board member, support educators to ensure that safety procedures are developed and consequently followed with fidelity?
As a principal, I was always a committee person, and I always check with stakeholders. And the decisions that were made at campus, for our campus, it was through a committee. Every campus should have a safety committee meeting. And I know that these procedures, protocols are turned in, they're reviewed at security services, but how many times do we take the time to sit down with the committee members on campus? They're there every single day. They know what needs to be done on that campus to keep it safe. we need to have our stakeholders be part of the decision-making process. We need to listen to them, and not just listen to them, but we need to act and take care of their needs. If they come in and say for a safety purpose, this needs to be taken care of, let's not leave it at that. As a district, it's our responsibilities to act and take their concerns at heart and move and get done what needs to be done to keep our students and our employees safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Our next candidate, Dr. Tipton, do you need me to repeat the question? How will you, as a board member, support educators to ensure that safety procedures are developed and consequently followed with fidelity?
Yes, thank you. Definitely, I also support that we have the voice of not only our teachers, but our parents and also our students. I'm advocating very hard right now for us to expand the committee that is currently being, right now at the school district, that does not include students, and it does not include teachers at all levels. And it also does not include special need families that represent their safety needs, because those are very different other angles that we need to plan for those type of families. So definitely I support, and I do believe that we should have the voice of every single representative, whether it's a student at all levels, a teacher, or even union representatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. Our next candidate, Ms. Drew Brown.
I definitely think that the committee needs to be larger. There need to be representatives from all sorts of groups on the committee. I think there need to be subcommittees, and right now the board has been going through training in this very thing to ensure that we do as much as we can for school safety, and that we stay true to the fidelity of it, oversee it. It's our responsibility as board members to make sure that these schools are safe, and that we ensure this isn't just something we talk about. This is something from now on that's going to have to be followed, checked. There has to be guidance, and it's got to be an ongoing thing that's monitored constantly. It's not just a one-time thing. And that's the responsibility of a board member, to ensure that these things happen. And it's always better when you have more people on a committee, more democracy, more voices, more input, feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Our next candidate, Mr. Cowan.
Used to be the safety committee was one nobody wanted to get on. And now it seems to be that everybody wants to get on it. You need teacher involvement, you need parental involvement, but you need something before that. If you're going to do a security assessment, it can't be done in an open fashion. You can't have a public hearing identifying all of the problems at a particular campus and every way you can get in, every nook and cranny that's open to intrusion. It's just like, giving the criminals access to your campus because you gave away all your secrets. There's some secrecy that has to take place. So you can have assessments in general, but when it gets down to details, that has to be dealt with police chief, BISD, the superintendent's office, the board committee, and the entire board approving it. Input from the campuses, certainly, but not the details, because you can't give away that security assessment information to the public and make it easy for somebody to break into our schools or hurt our children.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Our next candidate, Mr. Elizondo. How will you, as a board member, support educators to ensure that safety procedures are developed and consequently followed with fidelity?
I don't know if anybody knows, but I work for ESC Region 2 as a director for public health and safety. And I was adamant of including everyone. And that means every stakeholder had an opportunity to come into those meetings to make sure what is a safety concern, an intrusion issue. You're not gonna give away secrets. You're gonna bring in people because more people at the table makes a better plan, a better safety plan, and it incorporates everybody within the school system. Here, it's sad to hear that one of the organizations wasn't brought to the table because there are representatives. You do have members who do work, who are responsible for the safety of not only themselves, but the children. Would I include every individual? Most definitely. Anybody that wants to come to the table, especially when it comes to safety, has a table at the chair, or chair at the table, I should say. So with that being said, everybody has good input, especially when it comes to safety.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next candidate, Mr. Caballero.
It's sad to hear that your organization was invited to be at the table for this important issue. When I started in this business, we used to submit a safety plan to the security and police department, and one of the officers, I think it was Ms. Aguilar, used to approve them all. We came back after that approval, trained our teachers for different scenarios, and we did this every year. The staff, once it's gotten trained, we would practice. We did some drills, at least at my campus. That's where it happened. Our police department must show presence at all times. We, in turn, have got to expect our police chief to report to the superintendent and not the deputy, so that the board knows what is happening alongside him. Right now, that's not the setup they have. That's wrong, and it should be changed immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our final candidate for this question, Ms. Garza. How will you, as a board member, support educators to ensure that safety procedures are developed and consequently followed with fidelity?
Thank you, Ms. Borrego. I am currently the committee chairperson for the safety committee. And at the last meeting that we had, there was a committee that was organized with a parent. We had a few teachers in the secondary level assigned to it, along with some of our directors and some board members. I know that after that meeting, we had asked for them to include other community members onto this meeting, to this committee. Unfortunately, I guess they did not put them in at that meeting, but we have continued to ask for extra input on this. Also, in that committee meeting, we did ask that when these committees were meeting, that to include us also, because we don't want to be blindsided with concerns when they come to the committee. We want to be able to know what are those concerns beforehand. And I am open for having as many people on this committee, as long as we keep it, confined, because again, we do not want to give out our ideas out to the open, because remember, we're here to protect our students and the safety of everybody. So we do not want to just give out our plans out to everybody. So thank you, and thank you.
Okay. Our next question, we're moving on to a new topic. Salary, compensation, and benefits. We will be beginning this next question with Dr. Tipton. Raising the minimum wage to $15 was warranted. However, it caused salary compression. Salary compression means there is little difference in pay between newly hired employees and employees with seniority, skill, and responsibilities. For example, a cafeteria manager is earning a few pennies more than the food service worker. Question number 1. BISD had a step salary schedule based on years of service, education, and job responsibility for all certified employees. What is your position on implementing this schedule back for both certified and classified employees?
I support the step increase. However, I just want to make sure that, because when I first came on the board, that was the minimum. What I do support is for us to continue to seek out a market study to ensure that our teachers and our staff, classified or certified, that we are paying a competitive wage. However, if we can put the step as a minimum and not as a maximum, and for us to include also continue and seeking and requesting from administration that we continue to do an annual salary study to ensure that we don't fall below that step. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. Our next candidate, Ms. Drew Brown. If you need me to repeat it, just say it, so I don't have to.
I support a step increase. I support a step system because I think that's a good point to stay within the cost of living. Every year we have a certain amount so that we're increasing to keep up with the cost of living. But I also have always been in favor, and when I first got on the board, I pushed for us to have the TASB studies, because the new way to look at salary in Texas is to look at the market value. And we want all our employees, any position, our positions in BISD are no different from other positions in other districts. We want to be within the market value of the comparably sized districts in the state of Texas that are comparable to BISD. We're a top 20 district, and I want us to remain within the market value of top 20 districts for each individual pay, grade, level. Every employee should be within the market value of anybody else in the state, and that's very, very important.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Our next candidate, Mr. Cowan.
When my wife started teaching, after about 4 years, she found that a teacher who just started the same year that she did was making the same wages as she did with 4 years experience. 4 years later, the same thing was going on. And so that demoralizes, demotivates teachers and staff when you don't have seniority, or that bus driver called senioria. I love that word, But anyway, one of the things I think that needs to be done for teachers, you can't do it for classified because they're at-will employees. Bring back step increases, work out a method to fund it, because it's not there right now. And then add it to your continuing contract. What's happened in the past is new CFO comes in and says, we don't have the money, so they don't fund it. And so long as that takes place, you have no guarantee you're going to get step increases. Add it to your contract and you got to deal.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Our next candidate, Mr. Elizondo.
Thank you. So the answer is yes. When we were here 2014 through 2018, Mr. Cowan and I, with the help of the unions, were able to implement a step increase. That was something they fought for very, very hard. 2014 to 2018. I left 2018, guess what? They pulled it off the table because Mr. Cowan said there was one individual that came from out of town through the superintendent's recommendation to come here. And because he didn't fit in those step increases, the whole plan was taken away. This is your current board that voted for that. And now they want to bring it back. And now they're saying we support it. You should never have let it go. As a union man, as the president of a union that I did for about 20 years, you never give away anything you already have. They give you a quarter, you take a quarter. Next year, you're going to fight for another one. They should never have taken it away. This current board did that to you. And now they're here because it's an election cycle, wanting to tell you, yes, we are in support of it. But why did they take it away to begin with? Yes, we need it back, not only for the classified, but the certified. There is a way of being able to do it for everybody. Everybody should be equal.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next candidate, Mr. Caballero.
Yes, I do also support the pay increases. It helps our staff stay in line with inflation at least. Because right now inflation is running at 9.6. got hotter this past month, all we hear is TASB. I'm gonna tell you how I feel about TASB. They're only a consulting firm. If our teaching staff is doing such an awesome job as they are, without a doubt, why isn't our board compensating them for the hard work that they put in? They talk about market study, fair value. I have to say this. Where is the superintendent's salary at fair value? Okay? Let's look at the deputy superintendent's salary. They have nothing to worry, but our teachers do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our next candidate, Ms. Garza.
So 2 years ago, when I came on board, step increases had already been removed. So I was not part of that board. I do support the pay increases, as I have proven these past 2 years. We have moved our starting pay salary for our teachers from $43,000 to now $53,000. I do believe we do need to implement a step in there in order for us to not fall behind like we have fallen behind in the past. Like I've said, previous boards kept our salaries stagnant for far too long. And not just salaries, but stipends as well that had not been updated in over 20+ years. So I am for this pay increases to implement as well a step increase in there for all our employees. That way, in the future, a future board is not in the same situation that had happened a few years ago.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. And our final candidate for question number 7, Mr. Ortiz.
Absolutely. I certainly support the step increase. We used to have it many years ago, and all of a sudden it disappeared. And look what's happened. Is it equitable? I was talking to a classified employee and a certified employee, both with 17 years experience. Classified employee tells me, oh, I finally hit $16 after 17 years. Now she's making $17. Now you get somebody that comes in with 0 experience making $15. The 4,000 and the 15 was great, but we should have thought this out as well. Had a certified employee comes in, Mr. Ortiz, I finally hit 53 after 17 years. How much is the starting salary for a teacher with 0 experience? 53. Is that equitable? We need to think these things out, because our teachers deserve more than this. They need to be treated with respect and with equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Moving into our next question, we will begin with candidate Drew Brown. Stipends have been utilized to compensate employees for a specialized skill or responsibility. Do you have a plan to review stipends, and do you have a timeline?
I think stipends need to be reviewed yearly. That's part of what the compensation budget process is about. And this year, we didn't do as much on stipends. I think everyone pretty much agreed that we needed to do some bold moves in terms of our classified employees and our teachers. And we were able to give $4,000 to our teachers and bring everybody up to $15 an hour. It has created some issues in terms of compression, but we're not finished. But I like looking at stipends every year. From January on, basically, we talk a lot about salaries. We're looking at market studies. We're working with TASB. And the last few years, there's been a true commitment to improve compensation for our employees.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Our next candidate, Mr. Cowan. Stipends have been utilized to compensate employees for a specialized skill or responsibility. Do you have a plan to review stipends, and do you have a timeline?
I heard reduced stipends in the question, and I want to make sure I didn't hear that, but I guess it wasn't reduced. I want to make sure we're right. There's a couple of ways of looking at stipends. then maybe that we ought to look at stipends being inherent in the work and become part of the salary that a teacher would get, or a special ed teacher, or whatever, instead of trying to separate it. And then if there's increases later on, that would be increased as time goes on. I'm not sure. I don't have a perfect answer for that. I know it's been a tough deal. I know that there's a couple areas that, not because they intended to do it, but happened. Stipends were not dealt with maybe the way we wanted to and should have been looked at this year. Not student teachers, but substitute teachers got no raise. Now, where does it go? They pay $145 a day. Brownsville pays less. I want to put the emphasis in case the board doesn't know, there's more retired teachers than there are hired teachers right now. So it's a good group to take care of. But anyway, I'm not going to hold the board. These are tough things to deal with, but I think we need to look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Our next candidate, Mr. Elizondo.
Thank you. Stipends. Unfortunately for BISD, they're not equitable throughout the district. Right now you have coaches. Some coaches are doing 2 or 3 programs and getting 1 stipend, while at other schools, middle school, they're doing 1 event and they're getting a stipend per event. Do we need to look at stipends? Most definitely. Do we need to increase some of the stipends somewhere in some of the programs? For sure. Some people are doing extra work and not getting a stipend at all. Not only that, my understanding, the board reduced the stipends at the elementary level for some UIL sports. What are we doing? Drew Brown says we need to make bold moves. Yes, they gave a raise, $4,000 raise, but they also increased the taxes for everybody in the city of Brownsville, or anybody paying BISD taxes. Those are the bold moves we don't need. We got to make sure that we go out there and look at it and make sure that our budget is strong enough to be able to give not only raises, but to increase stipends across the district, not just at special schools.
Thank you. Our next candidate, Mr. Caballero.
We have conversations with coaches. We have conversations with teachers. Right now, we have some coaches that have disparity with their stipends. Sometimes even in the playoffs, if you notice at the varsity level, we have some coaches that go on to the playoffs at by district. They're getting the same pay as those that stay behind. We're gonna need to look at that. That is embarrassing because the people who are making the playoffs are actually going forward and working and making and representing our district and our community. We gotta look at that. This stipend at the elementary level that got reduced this past year from 1,000 to 200, not acceptable. Nobody wants the job now. My question to those folks is, you asked me how many folks in this district got a decrease in stipend salary. And I take very much pride in seeing how the elementaries run their UIL programs. We have to change this, and we have to do that immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our next candidate, Ms. Garza.
Thank you. The 2 years that I've been here, my first year with the budget process was very saddening to hear that a lot of these stipends had not been looked at in over 20 years. We brought up stipends, and this past year, we didn't look at the stipends. We looked at increases for everybody. Now, I know we're lacking teachers in some areas. Do we need to review the stipends? Yes, we do, especially in our special ed setting. We're losing special ed teachers. Teachers are not coming out of the universities wanting to come into special ed. In order to recruit and retain, we need to look at those critical areas where we need the teachers. And if we need to raise the stipends, I am for that, especially in our special ed, in our extracurricular activities as well, because we do know that students who are involved in extracurricular activities, they stay out of trouble. So our goal is to continue working on stipends as we have these past 2 years.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Our next candidate, Mr. Frank Ortiz.
Stipends. We need to increase, not decrease. And that's been happening. We saw it this year, as was mentioned earlier. I too talk to a lot of coaches. And my heart goes out to them. One of these coaches, once they get into the playoffs, they're working Saturdays, midnight, Sundays, trying to get their teams prepared in whatever sport to represent our great district. Yet, are they being compensated? We need to take a look at that. We need to take a look at UIL as well, as far as stipends. We need to look at our special ed teachers as well. Some of those teachers are in settings that is very, very difficult. And are they getting their appropriate stipends? It's very, very important that we look at that. And we can't forget just the classroom teachers. We need to also think about our extracurricular teachers that are doing coaching, that are doing all these other things, and a lot of times not getting compensated. We're talking about equity. Let's go up, not down.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Our final candidate for this question, Dr. Tipton.
The answer is yes, I do support compensating and there be equity. I do want to add that when we first came on the board in 2018, and I supported a TASB study, but I'll support any study. What I don't support is an in-house study, because the in-house study that we came on board and that former boards kept using over and over again for years, over 10 years, we found through a TASB study that out of our 7,000 employees, 4,000 of our employees were paid almost close to 60% below poverty value, below poverty level, 60%. I don't support no study, I support a study. And it was just one step at a time in order for us to bring all this pay equity for them to come and get to back into above poverty level, over 4,000 employees. After that, years later, we definitely worked on our stipend increase, and we continue. In fact, in October, we have another item where we're gonna begin working to get the new study for the new stipends. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. Our next question will begin with Drew Brown. It's like backwards.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you just went, okay, sorry. All right. Our next question will begin with Mr. Cowan. You're hearing this first from AOBE. I just want to make this very clear. On the TEA website, it states teachers K through 5 who completed the reading academies will be receiving a stipend. How will you ensure BISD disperses stipends appropriately?
If I understood, you're talking about teachers from K-5 did a reading academy. Okay, just want to make sure. I'm not familiar with the program, but if it's done, it should be funded. The local school board should be taking care of this. It should recognize it, maybe put it aside. You're doing the work to get it. I don't know a lot about it, but there seems to be something equitable there, and I'm not opposed to doing something like that. If I knew more about it, I could tell you more details, but it seems unfair to get somebody go do this and say, thank you. We're not going to give you anything for it. So not everything can be compensated, but this is a lot of work, K through 5. I know, my wife taught second grade for a long time. Reading assessment is a lot of work. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Mr. Elizondo.
Is this the one that was passed in 2019? So, very good question. Thank you so much for asking. I think the issue not only plays forward from what are we going to do now, because remember, the teachers that are doing this reading academy are getting paid zero. And who knows how many hours it involves. But what are we going to do for the people or the teachers that have already gone through this program? I think we need to make sure that it's equitable for the teachers or the staff that have already done this reading academy. We look at making sure that they get reimbursed as well. Do I feel that, do we need to pay these people for putting their time in? Yes, it's a mandated effort by the state or TEA, but we also need to compensate them. They've already have too many things on their shoulders to be told that they need to do something, because if not, guess what? You don't come back to school until you do it. And to not get paid to put so many hours into something that you're gonna do that's gonna benefit the kids of this district and not get paid is just wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next candidate, Mr. Caballero.
I guarantee you that none of these people up here have taken the reading academies. I have. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of extra time. And I had the privilege of doing that about a year and a half. I strongly believe, and Mr. Elizondo brought a good point. Those that have already completed the program should be compensated as well. Let's not leave them out. If you've never been through it, I challenge you, sit down and you're gonna see that it's like taking a college course all over again. I have seen when I was in the principal role, I used to provide my teachers time. I send the teachers aid to cover teachers so that they could do their reading academies. I provided some type of relief, but I can tell you this: we need to pay them as they're going through it today. Those in K through 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our next candidate, Ms. Garza.
Thank you. Well, I may not have sat down and completed the reading academies, but I did see firsthand what the reading academies were, and they were hours of submitting articles into this software. Unfortunately, we had not paid our teachers for it. It was very disheartening to see a few people resign at the end of the school year due to the reading academies. And I was even saddened because I was like, does this employee know that she or he needs to do this in order to continue teaching, that it's not a BISD thing? And they told me, I'm pretty sure they know. And I was like, well, I think they need to be well aware that no matter what other district they go to, they're going to need to complete these. Having sat through those reading academies, sitting on the side of someone who was completing one, I am for paying our teachers who have already completed it, and I am for paying the ones who are currently on it right now, because yes, it is like going through a college course. I'm currently in school, and let me tell you, my courses were nothing compared to those reading academies.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Our next candidate, Mr. Frank Ortiz.
I was floored when I heard this, and from so many teachers that approached me and told me about the reading academies. And I asked, how long has it taken you? Forever. You know, the weekends are supposed to be for what? Family? Well, their weekends, they were sitting down there working on these things and then not getting compensated. I mean, gosh, we need to respect our teachers, okay? We need to treat them with dignity. It's gone too long. It's gone too long. That needs to change, and I bring that change. And I believe in being retroactive. Those that already took it, they need to be compensated. Those that are going through it, they need to be compensated. We can't keep on doing this to our teachers and expect them to be in the classroom day in and day out, 7.5 hours a day, teaching our future.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Our next candidate, Dr. Tipton.
Yes, definitely. I support anything that is linked to our board goals. I also believe that we need to advocate at the state level. You know, we need to unite this next January because they are, you know, post-pandemic, they are demanding a lot on our teachers. I think that they need to let our teachers teach, and they need to stop disguising the learning loss, adding more work to our teachers without any compensation, and then leaving it to the local level, which, you know, as a board member and as a current sitting board member, we have supported increase in many different areas. I mean, such as, you know, the special ed, even coaches, UIL, fine arts, athletics. There were so many pay inequities because there was no plan before. no plan before for us. But definitely, looking into these K-5 reading academies, I definitely support if they have gone through it to compensate them what they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. And our final candidate for question number 9, Ms. Drew Brown.
Are the reading academies difficult and complex? They are. And do I support paying and retroactive pay? I do. But I also support us working closely with AOBE because there's a lot of stuff coming that the state's talking about. There's some things coming that they're going to require teachers to do. The education credentials are going to be more and more stringent, and we're going to have to work together to lobby our state and work with them to not let some of these things take place, or at least try to mitigate some of the things that are headed our way in terms of the requirements that are going to be made and the things that are going to be required of our teachers in order to teach. It's not going to be easier, it's going to be harder. We're losing teachers, and yet the state is going to make things much, much more stringent, and we need to work together to see what we can do to help that.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Moving on to our next question. We will begin this question with candidate Mr. Elizondo. What is your position on providing stipends to classified employees with specialized certifications or licenses, such as Google certifications or manual trades licenses, etc.?
If it's something new, I think it's a good way to start, to be able to make sure that you tell the classified that they're valued as well. You have a lot of HVAC technicians, plumbers, plumber techs, electricians. You have a lot of individuals that go out on their own and they recertify every year. And it's not a cheap certification to renew. I mean, I had to recertify a lot of licenses. It's not easy. It takes a lot of money to make sure that those certifications are done in advance, making sure that you don't lose it or go beyond the deadline, because then they don't allow you to work. So do I feel that we need to put some stipends or some value to those licenses that they hold? Absolutely. What are those numbers? I don't know, but we can sit down and make sure that they are given their due. Too many years have gone by without being recognized as a true employee of the school district. Because when something goes wrong, guess who you're calling? Especially here in the Valley. AC goes wrong. How many people are you going to call? They only have about 10 HVAC technicians. So you're not keeping them here because you're not valuing their work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next candidate, Mr. Caballero. What is your position on providing stipends to classified employees with specialized certifications or licenses, such as Google certifications or manual trades licenses?
I'm going to address the manual trade licenses. We do need more of those individuals with their certifications. They should be rewarded. They should be compensated. It'll keep them in the, we need them. We need them and right now in the maintenance department to carry out the duties that are of utmost importance to us. Right now, we have air conditioning breaking down during the summer, and by golly, you know, it's sometimes I remember putting work orders into the system, and if I didn't say it was an emergency, you know, it took a little bit more time. As far as in the classroom, I don't think I need some research on that one, because I don't want to have any issues with what we have been doing here in the past, and I don't want to commit to something that I don't have the full research on. I make decisions based on data, but definitely want to keep my our staffs, our classified staff in place and in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. And our next candidate, Ms. Garza.
Thank you. Going to our classified employees and stipends. Some of our classified employees that have an associate's or even a bachelor's degree are currently receiving a stipend. Now, for our manual trades, we know that a lot of these trades are slowly dying out. We don't have enough children or young adults going into these programs. So I know this last time around, we did give our custodians a stipend. I am for giving the rest of our manual trades employees, especially the ones that are in those high volumed areas. I know we only have one locksmith for our district, so You know, for one locksmith for 54 schools, including our departments, I think that individual should be looked at into receiving a stipend. Our bus drivers as well, we do know that their CDL license is not an easy license to receive. So to give our manual trades and some of our classified employees a stipend, I'm for it. Classroom paraprofessionals, like I said, the ones that have an associate's or bachelor's degree are already receiving a stipend. So I support the stipend.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Our next candidate, Mr. Frank Ortiz.
Yes, I also agree on compensating our individuals or classified individuals that have additional licenses. They are expensive, okay, and they need to renew them every year. Talking about the bus drivers, that CDL license, I had one at one time. And remember, I had to take about 5 or 7 different tests, okay, in order to be able to get that CDL. And then I had to drive that bus with the DPS officer sitting next to me all around town and park it and so forth. So, hey, it's difficult. It's not easy. So we need to compensate our classified employees that have these additional licenses, just the way we do our professional staff. I believe in equity across the board, and I certainly support these stipends.
Mr. Ortiz. Our next candidate, Dr. Tipton.
Yes, definitely. I do support license stipends for specialized licenses. I'm proud that I have always supported a study that can guide us to make sure that we make those right decisions. Like I had mentioned earlier, it's been a work in progress. We started off year one with just finding, that almost 4,000 of our employees were paid below, the 60% poverty level. And we just took it to the next level the next year, looking at stipends and trying to close just the teacher gap. Within a 4-year period, we closed almost $10,000 of that gap, when in the 10 years before then, there had only been a $1,700 increase just for our teachers. So now that we move forward to other areas, other needs within the district, such as our classified, definitely support compensating them correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. And our next candidate, Ms. Drew Brown.
I grew up in a family with several licensed plumbers, master plumbers, so I know what's entailed in the exams and the things that it costs to maintain those licenses. The district takes advantage of those licenses in several different categories, and we're not paying for them. We don't pay for them to achieve those investments to get their licenses, but we take advantage of them, and we definitely need to compensate better. In today's world, fewer and fewer people are getting degrees. They're going more towards licenses and certifications, and we've got to change with that too. And we need to be aware of how difficult and how much it costs to get those different certifications and licenses, and we need to pay them because they can make more in the outside world if we don't do that. So I definitely support it, and I think it's a move forward, and it would be a good thing.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And our final candidate for question number 10, Mr. Cowan.
The only thing I asked, if the district doesn't pay for it, why not? I said a few minutes ago that stipends are not the only answer. If you have somebody that is improved in their skills level, they shouldn't be remaining where they are. They should be reclassified and be at a higher level. It's just that simple. So you can give them a stipend, but I've seen stipends be taken away. You build it into the salary structure, you build it into the occupational level, that people can do all this extra training. A journeyman plumber, a journeyman electrician, should be paid at a certain rate, whatever. A carpenter's helper versus a carpenter, master carpenter, other thing. They shouldn't be classified the same way, And what it looks like and sounds like here that we have a misclassification problem that we need to address in the system. And on top of that, then we can build in these stipends. But we need to reward the person for those skills up front. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Our next question, our first candidate up would be Mr. Caballero. How do you plan to balance the budget and address the salary and compensation issues? Where will you propose cuts to afford salary issues?
Thank you. Very good question. As I said earlier, right now, it looks like we just turned to construction projects. I say we stop some of those construction projects that we really don't need. We save money because this is a very high costly inflationary process. We need to start implementing the same concept that we're implementing in our homes. Okay? We need to start saving money for construction projects instead of going off to bonds that the voters approve of. This business about us spending a lot of money in projects or pet projects, and then my question is, we could have paid off bonds, and somebody right now said, oh, that was not our deal. Well, it's our deal. It's all our deal. This community's deal. We've got to change. We've got to do business in a different manner so that we have enough money to start compensating employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our next candidate is Ms. Denise Garza. How do you plan to balance the budget and address the salary and compensation issues? Where will you propose cuts to afford salary issues?
So we've seen a pattern in BISD, and that pattern is every year we see a decrease, in enrollment. So 2 years ago, when I was first on the board, we cut 2 area administrators. We decided to cut from the top before we cut from the bottom. This last time around budget, we cut 2 more. Eventually, that's going to be the pattern, is we're going to start cutting from the top, not from the bottom. I don't want to tap into a teacher position. And also, like I have said in the past, there's certain numbers on the ratios that should not be included on budget compensation. And that comes to our office staff and to our deans. So next year, if BISD sees that pattern again with an increase or a decrease, we have to looking at the top first. So eventually we'll probably just be down to a superintendent and maybe a deputy. Who knows? We don't know what the future holds for us, but like I've said, the pattern is the loss of enrollment.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Our next candidate, Mr. Frank Ortiz.
There is a district improvement plan that we need to look at the district level when it comes down to, the budget. There is a budget process that we need to follow. We need to take a look at priorities. And when I say priorities, it was mentioned a little while ago, it's just like your home budget. You only have so much. The district only has so much. So at home, if you want something else, you're going to have to cut somewhere else. Same thing with the district. You need to take a look at a study. You need to take a look and see what you have, what is priority for our district. Instead of giving $12,000 because some individuals have additional work to do, you're taking away from the campuses. They have additional work to do now. Did they get any? Not at all. So when we look at the budget, we need to be very, very careful when we start planning, and we need to study it carefully so that we can go with our priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Our next candidate, Dr. Tipton.
Thank you. And yes, we were losing enrollment. And I know the question was, how do we plan to balance the budget? And I think that we were losing 2,000 kids every year. And I think that the hard work of our teachers, and I think the work that this board has done to compensate our employees, which of course there's always going to be room for improvement, but definitely we were focusing on all the inequities, the anomalies that were happening to balance this budget. But I believe that just, our hard work shows that we're only 500 less this year of students. And I also believe that we need to unite, and we need to unite with our unions. We need to advocate in the next legislative session so we can increase and they don't disguise any type of homestead exemption that causes the that causes us and the impact is that we feel it at the local level. But definitely, I think that, is it?
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. Our next candidate, Ms. Drew Brown.
Everyone in this room knows that most of the problems we've experienced in the last few years have to do with enrollment. There's nobody that doesn't know that. And we are starting to see students coming back, and I think that's going to help us because at one point we had a lot more employees than we had students. I mean, it wasn't balanced. The ESSER funds in the last 2 years have allowed us to do some maneuvering in order to increase salaries, but we all have to pull together and we need to work as a team to start lobbying Austin to pay attention in this area and quit giving more money to the schools that are in the center of the state, giving more money to charter schools than they give to this public school, allowing more charter schools in this area than anywhere else. And we have got to start yelling about that and making an issue and doing all we can to improve enrollment. Then we'll be able to do a lot of the things that we need to do and want to do.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Our next candidate, Mr. Cowan.
I want to clarify one thing before I go on. The bond issues, and I'm not trying to argue with Mr. Caballero, are not going to affect the budget. And in the sense that maybe people think getting rid of the bond issues, you're going to be able to save money, whatever. They're obligations that you're kind of stuck with. It's called interest sinking. Where your problem is the ratio of support staff to instruction. That's it. I got on the board the first time in 2000, well, after so many years, 20 years, can't believe that much time. But anyway, and the ratio, I thought it was 75%, 25%, 75% instruction, 25% support. No, it was like 53% support, 47% instruction. There's your problem. You know, it's improved, gone above 50% for instruction. But if you say you're at 54, 55% instruction, 46, 40, so 5% support, whatever else it is, tell the superintendent and the staff, we want to improve it and move it up 2 or 3 points. And that difference will go in instruction. That'll make the difference to be able to fund what you need to fund. If you don't, you're not going to be able to pay for it.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Our final candidate for this question, Mr. Elizondo.
So they're saying that we got to pay more, we got to compensate more, but the only outcome that they have is to increase taxes. That is not a way of balancing the budget. You don't put the burden on the taxpayers because you failed to keep yourself within the budget constraints. Now you're talking about compensating employees. Yeah, they're compensating employees. And how do you do that? You cut at the top, right? We had one of the members come over here and say they cut at the top. They cut at the top, but not at the very top. Because at the very top, the administrators they canceled, or the AAs, they took away their pay, put them at an elementary school, and then they compensated the very top $12,000. How is it that you're going to balance a budget like that? You're cutting at the bottom. You're adding counselors. You're taking them away, but you're adding double duties. Teachers are teaching now English, reading, and you're not doubling their pay. And that goes with clerks. You're not replacing anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next question will begin with Ms. Garza. What are your thoughts on social emotional resources for employees?
Thank you. So we've seen in these 2 years what COVID has done. COVID has our stress levels in our employees have skyrocketed. And not only are they stressed with the workload that they have, there's also a lot of stress coming from the homes. You know, we're having to deal with some of our children who maybe their anxiety levels have probably gone up due to COVID. And as much as we try to leave what we have at home, sometimes we just can't. We can't separate our home and our work. So I fully support giving that extra support to our employees. I know currently we do offer counseling sessions for our employees. If we need to go above and beyond, maybe contracting an outside source, because I know many times an employee doesn't want to go speak to maybe one of our counselors due to confidentiality. I am for that. I'm for looking at more resources to be implemented into our insurances. I know right now insurance is offering a lot of this social and emotional resources on our insurance. So I am for that, and I will continue supporting our employees.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Our next candidate, Mr. Frank Ortiz.
We all went through it, okay, and it was tough on many of us. And we're still going through it right now. And I certainly support that they be given the support that they asked for. Or, at the school level, at the campus level, and that's where our counselors come in. But if we're going to give them that support, we need counselors as well on the campus to provide that support. Even at the university with the student teachers that I am supervising right now, they're providing that support to the student teachers. It's very, very important that we do that because let me tell you, COVID did a number on all of us worldwide. And a lot of us need that support, and I certainly support that we continue doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Our next candidate, Dr. Tipton.
Yes, definitely. And despite us coming out of a global pandemic, and despite the increase in healthcare costs, we have not put that burden on anyone, any staff member, any teacher, classified employee, or certified employees. What we have done is we have dig deep into the current provider. We have also formed partnerships at no cost to the district with local agencies and universities to offer these type of services to our classified and certified staff. I continue to advocate for that, continue to advocate for any resources to ensure that our classified and certified staff get the support that they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. Our next candidate, Ms. Drew Brown.
After the last few years, we all know that employee burnout, employee stress are very real things. I mean, we've all gone through something pretty horrific in the last few years. And we asked our employees, our employees were amazing. I mean, the things that were accomplished because our students were always placed first, and the employees did all they could to minimize the effects of the pandemic on our students. But we have been able to do some things through insurance, but we need to do more. There's phenomena going across the country, the great resignation and things like that. We need to recognize that there is great stress levels, great burnout levels, and we've done some things, but we need to do more to keep our folks balanced and able to do their very best work for our students.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Our next candidate, Mr. Cowan.
There's a caveat to this, and that is if we're dealing with mental illness, which we may be talking about right here, it's something that's private and it cannot, become public. It has to remain private between the individual and maybe the principal and the staff, or principal at the campus. So I'd say something to be very careful with. We have health insurance, and our health insurance does cover, some of the issues to treat mental illness and some of the stress. But I think part of the issue is just stress. Almost like I can't take it anymore. And like that movie, I'm mad, somebody yelling out the window, I'm mad as blank and I can't take it anymore, that kind of feeling, And I have a suggestion, let it start at the campus. You can send orders down from the main office, but you're not going to get it done. Principals need to get more involved and deal with it in a group setting with their staff and their teachers in the nicest way possible. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cao. Our next candidate, Mr. Elizondo. What are your thoughts on social emotional resources for employees?
Um, Huge subject, especially with everything that's gone through, but we just cannot blame COVID on this. This is not just COVID related. This is duty related, work related. You know, it's the pressure that's put on every individual that's being added duties, you know, with no relief whatsoever. So we call it hitting the wall. I worked for the last 3 years in COVID units. There is issues, but we cannot just blame COVID on it. We have failed the district employees on being able to see how we can help them. Most of these individuals, if they have a mental health issue, what do? They go, right? What do they have to use for them to be able to get a break? Because they can't go to the principal and say, you know what, I'm having a mental crisis. I need to go. What do? Send them to the nurse. Do you have high blood pressure? No, it's not. It has nothing to do. It's between my ears. And some of these individuals, what do they have to do to be able to get a break? Use their state and local days. Those are not reimbursable. We are putting the burden on our employees, and we're not facilitating them the mental health adequate programs that they need.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our final candidate for this question, Mr. Caballero.
I'm going to respond in different ways. First of all, during the COVID, I had an employee who got COVID first time, gets it second time, gets it a third time, 3 different occasions. He calls me one night. I'm on my exercise bike, and he calls me in tears. He says, Mr. Caballero, I don't know how he got to dial my number, but he says, I don't know where I'm at. I said, well, pull over. I spent about an hour and a half before he could tell me where he was at. All he knew is that he didn't even recognize the guy in the rear mirror. Okay? A lot of counseling took place that night. I spent about an hour and a half before I could reach him and find out where he was at. It takes all of us to do counseling. And then right now, I have a lot of teachers and a lot of principals calling me. We've broken their spirits, folks. We need to change, and the change needs to be done quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Moving on to our final question, we will begin with Mr. Ortiz. What are your thoughts on the board dynamics? Do you believe in a board of 8 or a board of 7?
It's a board of 7, okay? The superintendent is responsible for daily operations of the school district. His responsibilities are not a role of a board member. That's our role. We support, we set policy. We support many of the recommendations that the superintendent will make. But then we also have the right to question. And it is us as board members that are going to make the final decision. Not 8, but 7. That is where I stand on that issue. And if elected, that's the way it'll be. A board of 7. With the superintendent answering to the board, not the board answering to the superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate, Dr. Tipton.
Yes, thank you. I believe in a team of 8 because in order for us to get anything accomplished, we have to work as a team. However, I also believe that I am very knowledgeable enough to know that when it comes down to voting, anything that is brought to the board members, it's 7 votes, it's not 8. However, in order for us to bring that to the table, we need to work as a team. However, do we have to agree? No, that's why we always have to look at how we vote and how the team votes, and it's only 7 votes there. And that's why I want to add that I have voted yes for teacher salary increases for 4 years in a row, close to almost $10,000. Versus in the last 10 years, there was only a $1,700 increase. So we ask if we're a team of 7 or of 8. Well, when it comes down to voting, it's 7 of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. Our next candidate, Ms. Drew Brown.
I actually like this question. The board, it's a board of 7, and we have 1 employee, and that employee is the superintendent. Nobody else works for us. Everybody else works for the superintendent, and the superintendent works for the board. The board's elected by the community, and we try to function as a team of 8, but it's actually 7 board members and 1 employee, the superintendent. And I think sometimes we get caught up in this team of 8 thing, and that's important. But I think it's also important to know that the superintendent works for us. We don't work for the superintendent.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Our next candidate, Mr. Cowan.
I would hope it would be a team of 8. Most of the time, it's a team of 5, 4, plus the superintendent, and that's sad. You need to work on trying to build some kind of consensus on the board to build it up, because it's not good when the board split. Recently, and I'll take credit, give credit to Ms. Brown, she supported a tax increase, and it was only right. She gave you all raises, you gotta fund them. What are you gonna do? Just run for 2 years and then go broke, and you have to pay for it. She did it. She did the right thing. A couple of board members didn't. They're gonna have to answer in a couple of years. But we must try as much as possible to have a team of 8, as much as possible. And this is the reason why. Because the board can set policy, but the board has no power to implement anything, nothing. So you need to rely on the superintendent to be able to implement the policies you set. Here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Mr. Elizondo.
I don't believe that there's a team of 8. I think there's a board of 7, and that's the way it should be. The board dictates to the superintendent how the boat needs to be run. The role of the superintendent is to make sure that those goals are met. What happens, and it's been happening lately, is the superintendent believes that he has a role as a board member, and he carries himself as such because, like you've heard here earlier, they include him in just about every decision, and he probably has input in the decisions that the board is voting on. And yes, they voted on a lot of things, and yes, they voted on raises, but they also voted on increasing the taxes of the majority of the BISD taxpayers. I think it needs to stay as a board of 7, because that's the way the structure is. And if you don't believe me, go to BISD and look it up. It's there. There's not 8 people on that board. There's only 7.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next candidate, Mr. Caballero.
The board is going to stand with 7 members. I'm for that. I have conversations with members of this board, and they tell me he thinks we work for him. I have a problem with that. Whether they admit it to us in public or not, they've had private conversations with me. The superintendent is someone who reports to the board, directly to the board. And when we have him upset because we're questioning him, that didn't make a difference to me. We will hold him responsible for what he is doing and what he's about to do. That's our job. I'm not gonna let him off the hook on that. And I'll tell you another thing. He doesn't follow policies. He parades everybody around town with allowing people to come into our buildings for political reasons. That's against policy. It should stop, but they're not doing anything to correct that.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our final candidate for this question, Ms. Garza.
I'm sorry?
So as an elected official, I have every right to visit our campuses. By following policy, and policy means I will not show up to a campus alone. But in order for our district to be successful, we need a team of 8. And we need to have the trust of our community, the trust of our employees, and most importantly, we need to trust our colleagues that we sit with on the board. So with that said, yes, in order to be a successful school board and a successful district, it needs to be a team of 8. Because you know what? How do we expect our children to be successful if we're not behaving ourselves as board members? If we're acting inappropriately on a board, guess what? That is learned behavior, and our children will see that and not respect their elected officials or their educators.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Okay, we are going to begin our closing statements. We will begin with Dr. Tipton. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. And we're going to be following again the order, beginning with Dr. Tipton.
Thank you all. Thank you all for the opportunity to be here with you all today. And I just wanted to kind of wrap up because I know the 2 minutes will go by really fast. But I just wanted to say thank you. I acknowledge that nobody is perfect, but I also acknowledge that there's always room for improvement. And one of the things that I want to mention is that I know that when I was elected 4 years ago, I didn't get elected by this union or this membership, but that didn't matter. What mattered to me was listening to every single concern from day one. That didn't matter to me whether I was endorsed or not. I continued to answer to the call of duty day in, day out. I think working out at the shipyard, my father always was proud of saying that we were open 365 days out of the year, and I think that it was preparing me for BISD because BISD never sleeps, and so I'd answer the call to duty almost, all year long. So during they have helped me because I didn't know all the answers. They have helped me grow and also improve our district and the well-being of our students. Some of the achievements, I hope I could actually name them all, but we'll be here all night. Voted yes for teacher salary increases in 4 years in a row, almost $10,000. When we first started, our minimum wage was at $8.93. Right now, our minimum is at $15. Voted yes to fund travel expenses for out-of-district student activities and or events to include chess, destination imagination, fine arts, and athletic competitions. Am I proud of this? Well, yes, but not necessarily, because we shouldn't have had to vote for this kind of action item. Voted to reinstate the 40-hour for our bus drivers. I continue to be a strong advocate for special needs, increased associate degrees. We didn't have any reduction in force, and we created a special ed committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tipton. Our next candidate, Ms. Drew Brown.
I want to thank AOBE for giving us this opportunity, and I want to make a point. It's not easy to run for the board, and I commend all the individuals who are up here because it's hard. It's hard to put yourself out here, and it's not an easy thing. And all these people are good-hearted people that mean well for our students and for our employees and for our community. I want to make one quick point. Place one is unique because you have 3 people who've been on the board before. AOBE's had an opportunity to work with Mr. Elizondo, you've had an opportunity to work with Mr. Cowan, and you've had an opportunity to work with me. And you'll have to decide, you need to be the judge out of the 3 of us. Who do you think listened the most? Who do you think responded? Who do you think tried? Who do you think was successful? Who do you think had the best interests of the employees, the students, the community at heart? And that decision must be made by you. At the other races, that's not the situation because they have not all been on the board. But in our race, AOBE's worked with all three of us, so you'll be the ones to judge. I've worked closely with AOBE. I was a member of AOBE for many, many, many years. And I believe in teacher and employee organizations. I believe in professional organizations, and I see us as a team. And I hope that you'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Our next candidate, Mr. Cowan.
I'd like to say a comment about Mr. Elizondo. We worked with you. And you remember we worked with you. So if you judge us, judge us equally, because we all work with you very well, and I don't think you would disagree with that. It was very open, they listened to you, I listened to you, she listens to you. So that's not what's going to separate us. I want to go back to my closing as though I were arguing to a jury. And I said, my number one issue that I'm very concerned about is safety. I'm very concerned about that. I'm very concerned that somebody might try to get in and harm you on a facility or the campus. And I want to make sure you're protected. I want to make sure that we have an improvement in wages and wage structures, salary schedules, step increases, whatever, and that they're properly funded. I told you a minute ago about the ratio of instruction to support staff. I think that's one way to fund it. Look at it in the future. And I want to work on improving the work atmosphere for employees at all levels, salary, teachers, whatever. Improve things on the campus. Make sure teachers get their planning period. Make sure people get a full half-hour lunch, not much of a lunch, but at least give you the whole half hour. I want to make sure you work in nice facilities. Continue improving our facilities is very important. I served you before. I've done a lot of good for this district over a period of 40 years. I've been on serve you in a period of 4 different decades. And I want to serve you again. I've done a lot of good when I was working. I'm involved in a lot of stuff going on, programs, you name it. And I think I can do the same thing again if I come back on. I will be available for you to work with and be a soundboard for your issues and make sure that you're heard by the administration and by the people on the campus as well, because they need to hear your voices, because that's where everything's implemented. Anyway, I want to thank you very much, and I want to say God bless you to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Our next candidate, Mr. Elizondo.
First and foremost, thank you, Ms. Borrego, Ida, members, for allowing this platform to be had here. I just want to say I have a lot of experience being on the other side of the table, so I know why it was so important for me to be able to sit down with your membership, your leaders of your membership, and they can attest to this. We sat down and ironed a lot of things. One of the biggest concerns that they had was step increases. We sat down, finalized step increases, and they were implemented. They're not there anymore. We should continue those talks. Second, and one that I think the biggest priority, of course, is safety. If you don't feel safe going to school, guess what your kids are feeling? The same or worse. So I am one of the biggest proponents about making sure that the staff feels safe, respected, and not only that, but is compensated as well, without being doubled work. Right now, you've been given raises, but you've been given double duties. So if you look at a per hour basis on the dollar amount, you're getting peanuts. That needs to stop. I'm committed to making sure that you get equitable pay and also making sure that you are respected and have a proponent on the mental health aspect of this, not only just because of COVID, but because of all the duties that you're being made to do. Again, I just want to make sure that I'm able to represent you for the next 4 years. My name is Carlos Elizondo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elizondo. Our next candidate, Mr. Caballero.
Thank you. I just want to restate that I bring to the table my degrees. I have a bachelor's, a master's, a mid-management degree, 40 years of experience in the campus life and also the main office area. Also, I also have to share with you that as you move forward and decide which candidate is the best choice for you, I want you to keep these things into mind. Okay? Because you have a choice, and you have a choice for the first time to say, what do you want? Right now, we have a lot of low teacher morale. We have a lot of micromanagement. We haven't done anything for that. Everything, our principals are waiting to be told what they need to do. Okay? I am in the belief that independent thinkers creates shared success. All Fortune 500 companies follow that protocol. We got to look at workloads, staffing patterns. You know, I've heard we're going to need to talk to our representatives at the state level. I have to tell you, it's kind of late. We should have been doing that 4 years ago. Okay? Budget, we need a zero-based approach. We need to start from scratch. We need to know where we're heading with that budget. We have an 11.4, I believe that's the latest figures they told us, that we were in a deficit with the teacher pay raises. Incredible. Okay, and then we raise taxes again. I'm not in that camp. I am a very fiscally responsible individual. You want to make success, we got to treat our school budgets like we should treat our own. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caballero. Our next candidate, Ms. Garza.
So 2 years ago, when I was elected, I think I would have proven to work with each and every one of you all, not just with AOBE, but with also our concerned parents out there. When I got elected, I started working, and I have worked every day till now. And when reelected, I will work every day for the next 4 years. I'm continuing to work for our students, parents, teachers, and staff. And we have successfully moved our district forward because in these 2 years, we have continued to give you all raises and to even, we've continued to also work for our classified employees. We have many highlights. Unfortunately, right now, on a time limit, we cannot name all the highlights. But I will tell you, I've sat on other boards and I've been advocating for this community for years already. You don't need a degree to advocate for a community. And I have worked for the district before, and I have seen many times where classified employees have been mistreated. And back in 2016, I was one of those employees that my position was cut from the 2016 school board. And I would never allow that again to happen because I reached out to our board members and not one reached out to me with a concern that I had. And I swore that when I was ever going to be on a school board or any board, I would not treat any employee the way I was treated. So I'm continued to working, I'm committed to working for you all as I have done in these past 2 years.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. And our final candidate, Mr. Frank Ortiz.
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. And allowing me some time to share with you where I stand and where I want to see our district move in the future. I want you to know that I am here to listen to you. I'm here to listen to your needs, because there's a lot of cries out there right now. I'm here to be your voice, sitting on the school board. 41 years of educational experience. You know, not that I know everything, but I know how the district operates. As a school administrator, I dealt with every single department in order to get the needs that we needed on our campus. So I know, and I'm familiar with the operations of the district. Certainly, I'm familiar with the operations of a school. 20 years as a principal at 3 different schools. So I know the needs. I know the responsibilities. I know the duties that our administrators and our teachers have. I hear where they come from. And when I made decisions on campus, I always made the decisions based on the thought of a teacher. I always put myself in the place of a teacher and made those decisions together with committees for what was best for our school. Once again, I thank you very, very much, and I pledge that I will be your voice for the next 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. We want to thank every single candidate for taking the time to participate here tonight. Just a reminder, and we hope that tomorrow, everybody tunes in, that Wednesday, everybody tunes in at 6 o'clock for the second day of the forum. Just a reminder as well that all candidates did submit a questionnaire with additional questions, and those questionnaires will be uploaded after Wednesday's forum to our website at myaobe.com. Reminder that also for voting for endorsements, it will not be open until after Wednesday's forum, and it will remain open until Saturday, October the 8th at 2 p.m. Again, your membership will be verified as you vote, and you will be able to vote in person at our office or online. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and thank you for those who were online. We will see you again on Wednesday.